Welcome to Men Unfiltered, a podcast that looks at men today, addressing what's changed, what needs to be restored, and modeling the God-ordained role of man himself. His responsibility as provider and protector, leader and lover. This show sets out to destroy the current narrative that has an apparent mission to emasculate men and purposefully restore them in an empowered position by addressing accountability for their own health, money stewardship, and commitment to leaving a legacy. Unashamedly, here are Men Unfiltered.
Good evening. This is Men Unfiltered, another Monday edition. I'm the real GM, the health evangelist, Grayson Marshall Jr. And my podcast partners, as always, on Monday, starting with the top right, the none other than. That's it.
Oh, I was waiting for some adjectives. Dr. Andrew, never forget the way Gentry, a.k.a. Dr. Real Estate Jax. That's it. I was waiting on some more adjectives. I never know what you switch it up sometimes.
I know, I got to keep it like that, a.k.a. feeding 100.
Yeah, feeding 100.
AKA feed him 100. Is that what it is?
100. Yeah, feeding 100. Yeah, he's doing his Thanksgiving food giveaway, and he's already got all the 100 families already allotted. So they just they already got it. Yeah, so that was powerful. I think the next day he did it. It was all done. So he posted it, and he did that. So on the road tonight, on the grind, coach himself, none other than
Chris Allen on the grind, coach. Coming to y'all live from Miami, Florida.
Miami.
You can tell he's in the hotel. You can tell he's in the hotel because he got doo-doo brown curtains in the back.
Yeah, man. But it's a nice hotel, though. It's a nice little hotel. They ain't going to give me no money, so I ain't going to put no shout out on them.
That's how you know in the hotel in Miami. You know, nobody there with doo-doo brown.
I open up that little street. You can see Miami right back there. But we leave for Chile in the morning. Well, tomorrow, so we leave for Chile. So
that's what's up. If y'all don't know Chile is a country. It's not a weather.
Chile is a country.
It is a country.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a good time.
For those who don't know.
Yeah, trying to help y'all get a little bit of geography and everything on this show.
Right.
Trying to help you out.
And it's spelled with an E, not an I.
Chile, no, it's not the girl from TLC either.
No, it's not that. It's not that.
So it is Monday, and we've had topics on top of topics, but this day we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to see how it goes.
Yep.
Tonight is just what's on your mind. Everybody who's watching, everybody who is out there in Men Unfiltered land, the mic is open. Ask the question you want us to talk about. It doesn't matter what the subject is. Just ask the question. We want you to feel open and share. It could be about relationships. It could be about anything going on in the world today. Whatever it is you want to talk about now, we'll say this. We're not going to get into debatable topics about race, about politics, all those things, but we can discuss.
We're not talking about Kyrie and Kanye?
We can. We can. I mean, because the reality of it is, I mean, it is a topic that people are taking sides on. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some perspectives that leave it in its own place. But we can. I mean, they would have to ask us how they want that initiated, because I'm never going to be one to talk about a situation that I only know what the media shares.
Right.
And I think that's where people make the mistake. They pick a side based on whatever media outlet they watch. So if you watch one, you're going to get one opinion. You watch another, you're going to get another opinion. Yeah. I do have my overall feelings about approaches when it comes to it. And they probably are in contradiction to a lot of the world, because people are going to take an emotional position on it and have a commentary based on that. I tend to not do that. I tend to have a more practical approach to it, which doesn't yield well with a lot of people who want to be in their fields about it. But whatever they want to talk about. So anybody watching tonight, the mic is open. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever question you have, please share it, because we want to be able to do that. Chris talked about that. You guys always have a lot of questions, always have a lot of commentary and input. But whatever it is that you would like to talk about, we want to give you the chance to just holler. So anybody who's watching, just type something in. There's no bad topic, no good topic, and nothing's really off limits. But we will preface it if it's a topic that we think will go to the left for the wrong reasons, not for a good, healthy discussion reason, then we'll stay away from that.
Yeah.
Sherry Ray says, "Hi, gentlemen. This is awesome. A man said that there are no faithful men. If they say they are lying. He says that men are designed to have many women." Okay.
You need to run from him.
Go ahead, Chris.
He's setting you up for failure. He's setting you up. You know,
a man said that there are no faithful men.
Yeah,
and if they say they are, they're lying.
Yeah, he
said that men are designed to have many women. What do we think about that? Is that true?
I disagree. I think he's setting her up for failure. He's predisposing her to an ideology that he wants her to believe. And if he can put it on the preference of there is none, he will stop her from going to look for any.
Right.
So I think he's setting her up for failure. That's just my personal opinion.
Doc?
I think that's based off that man's wants and needs, right? Like what he wants out of life. I think that bothers me the most. We can blame for all women, or this is how society is as a whole, right? I think that really bothers me, because the grim reality is the same man that's saying there's no faithful men. You walk right down the street, there's a faithful man who's been in love with his wife for 30, 40 years. Right. So I think we hear so much of the negative narrative, and what people tend to see the most is instead of rule, they see what's contradictory to it, right? They see. I once read a book. Let's put it like this, right? I once read a book called Good to Great. Good to Great, without they look at 1,000 different business owners, right? Ones that are high performing, had great business concepts, and they seen that they were all mild tempered. They used anytime there was a problem, they would look at themselves. Anytime it was great, they would talk about everyone else, right? And I'm not on a political side at all. So what we see is the exception to the rule. Like you see a Donald Trump yelling, screaming, cussing people out, talking crazy. And the majority of people believe now that's what leadership is. And I think that's what we can look at, is the exception to the rule versus the rule itself. So a lot of times when we're talking about relationships, when we're talking about men ain't being ish, well, that's what you're exposing yourself to constantly. And that's the exception. Sure. You don't really see the other narrative. You only see what's been exposed to you. And generally the people around you are like you. That's why we talk about like-minded people, right? That's why you hang around them. So if you're having problems in your relationship, most likely you're hanging around people who have problems in their relationship to validate you. So the only thing you can ever see is the exception.
You know, I will say this though, Chris. I think that on a general basis, good men aren't that way. But I think that the amount of men that have been hurt, the amount of men that have been emasculated, I think a lot of them take this approach. And this is, to me, like sort of a safety approach. If I'm leveraging my bets here, right? If I have more than one. So right. I think that has, to me, has something to do with, again, who they are and what they face. And like Doc said, the narrative, because here's the deal. You develop your own narrative when it comes to relationships too. Mm-hmm. And that becomes what you live by. And based on that is how you act in that way.
And what you search out.
I think I think for me, from how she posed the question, right, that just speaks to that particular individual. There's a whole dialogue that we can go into the psychology of what makes a person think that particular way. But right, when you frame that narrative, it says that a man that says he is faithful, he's lying. Right. So now you're making a broad statement for the masses.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So when you do it that way, now it's almost like you're singling yourself out of that equation. Now we can go into the dialogue of what's actually making you feel that way.
Right, and that's your new narrative, and that's what's reinforced.
That's your new narrative. That's how you frame it.
Again, there's enough support to that scenario that you can find a way to validate it. Any sort of scenario you want to have or create, you can find a way to justify it, and that's across the board in any aspect of the life. So
that's the only information you're going to seek.
Correct.
Right. That's the only information you're going to look at. If you look at, we talked about this before, algorithms. If you look at algorithms, if you look at Google, the way you search for things and what you're looking for, that tends to pop back up in your news feed more often. That's the same way the brain filters out information. Every time I want to see negative, guess what? Negative is going to continue to be presented to me. But if I start seeing positive in people, if I start seeing positive in situations, if I start seeing positive in life, that's what will be presented to you more often.
She said that's what he said. If men say that, they're lying. From Australia. We got people from down under.
Wilhelmina from Australia. I like it.
Good job. Yeah.
Sherry, that's good. It says this is what he says.
If a man say that,
he said if men say that they are lying. I did not say that, Doc. You are deep, and Chris, you are on it, and Gracie, you are correct. This is a hurt man. God have mercy. Yeah, Sherry, I think that you need to really, really dig deep on that particular individual and find out what's going on and make him tick the way he's ticking, because he could be possibly telling you something about his particular self. I don't think that all men gonna cheat, and I don't think that if a man tell you that he's not gonna cheat, that he's lying. That's just not the narrative that I want to believe. And I believe that the men that you're gonna come across, you're gonna find a guy who really, really gonna be faithful to you. That's what I believe.
And I believe they're out there, but I think that there's unfortunately in the poly world that we live in this polyamorous world, and these worlds that we're in, a lot of this stuff is now permissible. So a lot of people say to themselves, well, yeah, this is okay. I mean, it's funny, I'm telling you, but as much as I get entertainment out of social media, there's some of the stories on here that I'm just like, really? This is what y'all doing now? This is how, I mean, and they literally are living and promoting living this way. It's kind of crazy. Sherry said, let us be clear, gentlemen. This is not
good, Sherry.
This is the man that I count. Facts. And that's
Sherry,
all good.
We good. We good.
It's all good. It's all good. So
we know.
Exactly. Anybody that's watching tonight, this is Men Unfiltered. This is a Monday edition. We do this every Monday at 7:30. Tonight, it is an open mic. Tonight, we want to hear from you. What is it that you would like to talk about? You have an opinion about, a feeling about, whatever it is. Please share it tonight. We want that. We encourage that. Please do that. We want to see where you stand. And again, it could be about anything, anywhere, anytime.
Chris, I think this is the first time I've seen you from this angle, Chris, and it lets me know that you have more of a peak on top of your head than I do.
Hey, you call that Danielle will call that a sexy peak. You don't know nothing about it.
Thanks for sharing it, Sherry. I appreciate it.
Hey, there's a couple of things over the last couple of weeks. We've had a couple of people, so while people are chiming in on here, there's a couple of questions that people had. So I'll go ahead and share those, and we can talk about those as well.
Okay.
Number one, these are in no particular order, and if we don't get you tonight, trust me, we'll get you at some point. One of the questions was, should a man like other women's pictures on Facebook when they're in a relationship? I think that could go both. Should you, if you're in a committed relationship, should you be out there commenting and liking other people's pictures?
Well, here's my thing. First of all, do I have a relationship with that person? Do I know that person? Is that person a part of my life? I mean, are you asking, are you saying, am I doing that in a flirtatious way? Or if Daniela posts a picture and she got a nice dress on, I can say like, not, I mean, what are the parameters here?
Right.
I mean, is that Tracy? I mean, there's a lot of girls that I know when it comes to it that you say encouraging things to, that you can like the pic. I mean, what is the like doing? Right.
Adrian?
I think social media out here destroying whole lives based off like, I'm dead serious. Like, it's the craziest thing in the world, man. Like, where have we gotten to where a simple like can now cause a rift inside a relationship? If I'm not sleeping with the woman, haven't slept with the woman, we're not engaged. Like, I've never understood this concept between a man looking at a woman or a woman looking at a man and that being a problem, right? Like, the reality is this: if a female's hanging with a female and they see a man that's sexy, I'm like, God dang, he fine, right? If a man hanging with his female and he turns his head and look, now he gotta get smacked. It's the dumbest thing ever. Like, I just don't believe we really look at things from a rational standpoint. Majority of we've started to place value on stuff that has no value. The things that
I like what Timothy just said. He says, if you are comfortable doing it in person, it shouldn't be a problem on social media. So let's change the narrative. You with your girl, you in a committed relationship, a young lady walks by, she looks very, very nice. Do you turn to that young lady and say, you looking nice in front of your girl?
No. To me, I think those are two different things, Chris.
Hold on. That's two different things for one. But two, this is the reality. If you're secure in that relationship, most likely women do things for other women. Right. And my man Corey had to talk to me about this. And I was like, yeah, we're doing all these things. He's like, no, Adrian, I don't think men do things for men and women do things for men. He says, no, women do things for other women. So when they get the eyelashes, they get the outfit and everything else, they're checking out the other woman and want other women to say, hey, you look nice. They're not doing it for us. So if I'm looking at it from that standpoint, most women will look at another woman if she's secure enough and be like, she is cute. She is beautiful. Right? Like, hey, you look nice. Your hair look good. Your clothes, whatever it may be. Will do that to another woman. I don't see why there should be a problem in a relationship. I'm sorry. I want the type of relationship where you see a girl off in the distance. She got a big. We both looking. Don't get it twisted. Like your girl gonna look and like, God dang. Like it should be enough security inside of that relationship, and that's why I find it so frustrating when I see people having tips about you liking a photo on Facebook. The only thing that's doing you're getting mad is dealing with your insecurity. Is pressing some insecurity that you have. Or this notion that you have that it's some form of disrespect. Why? When you do it yourself, you just don't want to see him do it.
No, and and I'm good with Evie's that way. If we're out, Evie sees somebody and say, baby, she look good. So what you think about her? And now we got a great relationship, so I don't have a problem. Yeah, so does she fine. But at the end of the day, now I couldn't do that before because the insecurity level was on fleek. It was ridiculous. But it's all insecurities. And I think
relationship before.
Right, exactly. And so you had to be careful about doing anything. But at the end of the day, it's natural. I mean, to look at somebody and say that, and you can't, I'm sorry, no one can be on social media now, especially on Instagram, and not see something coming through your feed that is less than scantily than what's there. And I'm sorry, if you look, they're looking. Women don't act like they don't look either. They look too. Correct. Because they are as critical as they can be about each other, or they look at her and they wish they had something on themselves, or hey, I need my eyes like that, or I like what that thing is. They do the same thing. Right. And so the reality
why should it cause a conflict in a relationship?
It shouldn't, but it does. There's so many relationships that causes a major problem. Correct. So you got folk unfriending folk. You got folk going and sliding in people's DM. Why my man liking your pic? What? Wait a minute. What do you? And this is literally, and they feel some sort of authority doing that. They feel like they're entitled to do that. You don't know that person. All I did was like the picture.
Does it depend on the type of picture, like we talked about earlier? Does it depend on the type of picture that we're talking about? So if Gracie, you in a relationship, there's a picture that Evie liked, the guy just had his shirt off, and she comments, nice photo. Do you feel some type of way?
No. Why? Because she liked Terry Crews. She thinks Terry Crews sexy.
Well, we're not talking about people that's unattainable. We're talking about your next door neighbor.
But watch it. I don't think anybody's unattainable. And the reality of it is that shouldn't be the difference. It shouldn't be if they're attainable or unattainable. Because how do I know she would run into him? I have no idea.
Gotcha.
The reality of it is, if she thinks someone else is nice looking, that means she has something that intrigues her.
Gotcha.
But that doesn't take away from you.
It doesn't take away from me at all.
It doesn't take away. Right.
I think that's where the problem becomes with the insecurity. It makes them feel like they're less.
Correct.
That's why it becomes a problem in the relationship. Right? Or someone has told you this narrative, but you've never rethought it, that it's disrespectful.
Right.
You've never rethought it because you do it with your girlfriends. Why you have a problem with your man doing it? I think it's crazy.
That's crazy. I think it's crazy as well.
But it is something that permeates relationships nowadays. Absolutely. And you have people that will go through other folks' pages
just to
see if you like them. It's just nutty. It's crazy. And here's the deal: you are only adding to your own narrative of insecurity. That's somebody who's looking for a reason. Now, if my behavior is giving you reason, if I'm sitting next to you and I'm enthralled in Instagram photos sitting next to you and I'm doing that next to you, that's disrespectful. I'm not doing that. But the reality of it is I'm going through my feed and this is what it is. It's okay, shorty cute. But when you are committed to someone and your eyes are for that person, it's just somebody. There's no pull there. There's no draw there. I'm good. You know what I'm saying?
That's a great question from Wilhelmina. It says, because that was actually one of the other questions too. She says, how do you dress insecurity? That's Wilhelmina's. How do you dress insecurity? But then someone else said, how do you deal with jealousy? Same type of question.
Good, Doc.
One of the first things I believe most people have to understand is insecurity is a lie. right? It's a lie that you told yourself. It's a lie that someone's told you. It's something that you've adopted as truth to yourself, right? So anything that you're insecure about, now you have to speak to that insecurity, right? It's not everyone trying to hurt you, right? You have to find the rationale behind what you're believing. Like, find and track why this is a belief system that you have in your mind.
Where's that?
Who gave you that? I think that's what the biggest thing is, the root when you're dealing with insecurities. What you'll begin to find is there was actually no real viable source for that information, or it came from a person who was insecure themselves. Once you identify that this is a lie, now you can start talking yourself out of your way out of it. Meaning, if something triggers you when it comes to your insecurity, so the man clicks the picture, the girl has a big butt, you have a small butt, does not necessarily mean that he does not like your butt. It just means that he liked that butt, right? Does not mean that you're less than. And you have to start catching your triggers when they happen and talk your way down. If you don't start catching your triggers and finding out why they hurt you, you'll continue on with the very same thing. When you go into envy is only anger. And envy and jealousy is only anger at yourself projected towards other people. It's based off of things that you're not doing. It's based off of things you don't have. It's based off of something that you're not doing, people are doing. So when you identify that jealousy or that anger is really stemming from what you want out of life, you can get up and you start working towards it. Most people don't work towards it.
They don't work it. Right. That's good.
Because both of them are bent on external things and other people. Insecurities are based on how someone else has made you feel or how you've allowed them to make you feel. If you have a great self-awareness of who you are, insecurity is not there. You know, and you can look at it. Insecurity doesn't have to do with the size, a shape, an attitude, or color, because you have folks that might not be a size 4 or size 6 that are secure as they can be in who they are. And you got some folks that are trying to get from a 6 to a 2 because they're not secure. I mean, it just depends on what they see is the value narrative that they're not meeting. And that's something from external. The insecurities that you have are something that's outside of you that you're trying to either become a part of, match, or figure it out. Jealousy is the same way. It's something that's happening outside that you're trying to compete with. Right. It's a narrative that you think is going to move you to the place that you need to be. It's both of them are something that's missing.
Yeah, because the reality is the word itself is in. It's secure on the inside of you. Nothing on the external is going to change how you feel about yourself on the inside. Right. That's what it's all about. Right. You know, we go through time and time again. Michael Jackson is one person who had that thing about his nose, and no matter what, he changed that nose. What he felt on the inside was his nose was still messed up. So he tried to fix externally something that was going on internally, and then we see how that turned out. So that whole thing about insecurity is about how you feeling on the inside, because nothing on the outside is going to change that.
Correct, but that's what they're basing it on. They're basing it on what's on the outside.
They base it on what's on the outside, but it never changes. Good.
Right, but I've said it a million times. Insecurity needs to be right.
Correct.
It needs to be right. So what insecurity is going to do is always go out and search for information to prove itself. Stop searching for the information. One. Soon as you're triggered by the thing, stop looking for things to prove that thing right.
So Wilhelmina, I may have said something that she didn't agree with. She said it's not the same thing. So we can talk about that. She feels that jealousy and insecurity is not the same thing. Wilhelmina, can you address that a little bit more? And then she also said that insecurity is more. So address that for men. I'm not quite understanding what she means by that, guys. Do you?
Insecurity is more. So address that for men. Well, I'll take a stab at it. What she says, insecurity. I think there are more people that are insecure than jealous. And I think that's what she's saying. There's more instances of people being insecure. Gotcha. And I think men really have had a challenge as of late of dealing with that because of emasculation, because of the feminization of men. I think there's a lot that goes with the insecurity of men. I think the new woman, the independent woman, has created that for men too. I think again there is a challenge when it comes to order, authority, when it comes to who's following who, and so I think that's the big part of it. So I think a lot of men find themselves, especially in Doc, we talked about this before. What is it, 53 or 57% of women make more money than men when it comes down to it?
It's a higher number, yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, I heard a man today. talking about this sort of thing when it came down to males and females. And what he said was, the lady was saying how she wanted a man with 6 figures.
Yeah.
And he gave the statistic that there are about 100,000 men that make 6 figures or more. 58%. There's 100,000 men that make 6 figures or more. So when you're dealing with a population with 13% of the population, there are 8 billion people. So when you're talking about this many people, so it's 8 billion, 13% of that, you're talking about 1.5 billion people. You got 1.5 billion people, and half of them or more, actually, there's more women than men. So if I got 500 million people, I got well over 600 million women, and less than 100,000 men make over 100 grand.
Right.
So the reality of where things are. So when you're looking at that, if this becomes the criteria, if this becomes the actual resume that you have to have, there's a bunch of men out here that aren't meeting that. You know what I'm saying? So you literally are creating this this insecurity with this narrative that seems to exist for some people.
Okay, so we're not arguing, Wilhelmina. Just we gotta make sure. All right, it says, I thought this was a forum for men, so maybe deal and talk to that. This is not women's fault. Help men get with change. Okay. Go ahead.
So first of all, I don't know if you've ever been on there before. When we're speaking to both sides. We're not speaking to a man or a woman. So when we're talking about insecurity, if I'm talking whatever it may be, I'm talking to both men and women. So men have the exact same insecurities. If we're dealing with a man and he feels like his wife's going to cheat on him, he's trying to control her. He has to realize these are things that came from a previous relationship. This is something that's been born inside of, it's something that's been spoken inside of him year after year, but there's no truth to it. I cannot predict the future in anything that I do, right? So how can I be protective against something that may never happen? And that's what we find in a lot of men. A lot of our insecurities stem from external sources. As Coach is talking about right now, as men, we have a lot of pressures on us dealing with the expectations of what women would have on men. It's not women's fault. Same way when women say, I've been hurt before, that's why I have trust issues. It's not necessarily men's fault that you decided to have a trust issue. It's your fault. So anything that we're speaking is on both sides. It has nothing to do with a male or a female. It has to do with insecurity as a whole that I'd like to address.
Right. And that was the question about insecurity. So good. We talked this. Okay, we talked this one before, and this is some other questions. Do you think that infidelity is always a deal breaker, no matter what?
That's an individual person question.
Yeah. What do you think, though? Do you think that we can get past infidelity, or you think that from a man's, do you think it's easier for a woman to forgive the male, or do you think it's harder for a man to forgive? What do you think?
I don't think it's a man or woman thing. I think it's an individual thing.
Okay.
Me, I personally, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's a deal breaker right here, bro. Like I told you, if I say I love you, in my mind, if you even got a child, that was immaculate conception. You ain't never had sex before. I can't give another man sliding in. So for me, if you cheat, that's a wrap. You go ahead and pack the stuff. We gone. That's a wrap.
What say you, Gray?
See, when you said that, I was waiting on Doc, because Doc has said that I don't know how many times.
Yo, he don't play with it. I said we talked about it before.
You know, I think that I think the faith-based part of you will hold you semi-obligated to forgive.
Jesus would have to come sit on my bed and call me by all 5, 6 of my names to ensure that he's speaking with me. And we might have to go over a couple of things that I've done in his life that no one else knows about. Sure that I'm that person that he wanted to try to save and mend this relationship after somebody else has been rocking on top of my wife. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's again, that would be tough, but I think a lot of it has to do truly with what the circumstance. I think Doc said up front, facts. It depends on the person. Yeah. I think it depends on a lot of people. I know for me, I can speak from experience. no matter how bad my ex marriage was, I wasn't leaving my kids. So I think there's a lot of people who find that commitment as sometimes being greater than what's actually going on. I think there's a lot of people that stay in relationships for other reasons. Right. That and again, I don't know if it's tolerating it, but I think that's that men that at some point those things can be an issue.
Right.
And that's kind of how that works. So that could be a problem for some people. I don't know. I just hope I don't have to run into it. That's all.
Well, Amina said, betrayal, no one likes it unless you are looking to do the same thing. So, Okay. Anybody? I'm just waiting on some other questions. I'm just doing some feedback from what I've already gotten from people. So anybody else got
throw them in the chat.
If you got more questions, just throw them in the chat. We're gonna answer them.
To this, let's see. Don Buck says, if you can forgive, kudos to you, but learn to move forward and leave it in the past, and you become internally broke, or you become internally. Yeah, I mean, I think again, it takes the maturity of someone to be able to do that when it comes down to it. That does take a lot. To be honest with you, it does.
Yeah, and
I like this. Go ahead.
And there's been stories, right? We were just at a men conference not too long ago, and the man said he said, I hope. Like he said, when I got married, the next day I had 2 women, and I pretty much had it for 8 years.
Yeah, he did.
He said he found God, right? His wife knew about it. He found God. They had another child. He had another child out of wedlock, and when he found God, it completely changed around.
Mm-hmm.
That's his conversation. Some people that look back at the past, it was common for men to have 2 whole families, right? Yep. One around the corner from the other. That was something that was common. Women would put up with that back in the day. It was something that was believed. Now, I don't think necessarily it's so widely spread. I think some people will stay in that relationship because they're toxic, they're broken, or they're insecure, and they don't realize that this isn't a normal thing. Right? They're afraid to let go. They're afraid to be by themselves. And they'll stay in that situation, tortured by the infidelity that's happened, or it'll happen over and over and over again until finally something breaks inside of them. But that's why I say it's an individual question. I've known men who've been cheated on multiple times by husband cheated with multiple men, and they stayed. They're still make it work with the wife. I've known men who they kissed, and he was like, you know what? No, I'm out. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? So it's all based off of individuals' perspective.
Here's one. I like this question. Is there something about relationships that you thought about in the past, but you've changed your whole perception? Is there anything about relationship that you used to think one particular way, but now you think something completely different about it?
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a real good one. Wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doc.
One. That love. One of the biggest things that I've learned about relationships over the course of life, like you thought it's just you thought the word love was an emotional term, right? That we're supposed to hold on to, and that's what really builds the relationship, or what really binds the relationship. And over the course of my life, I've realized it's no longer the love, the word of emotion that binds the relationship. It's the friendship that binds the relationship. Constantly renewing, understanding each other, growing with each other. That's the binding of the relationship. I think that's one of the most important things over the last 8 years of my life that I've really looked at when I look at relationships, right? That friendship, that person that you want to spend time with, that person that you're not trying to run away and get to the club or get to your homeboys or get to your friends, right? Like you're doing life with your friend. And so you're able to move past a lot of the small arguments, the small fights and things like that, because you're not just in it based off of this emotional fairy tale feeling of butterflies that are in someone's stomach. No, I'm doing life with my best friend. I want to be with that person forever.
I think the one thing, Chris, that I've learned is that I believe that if you were committed enough to a relationship, over time it would change. I thought that if you really, if you were really, especially from a faith-based perspective, that God's changed you, God changed your heart, that I believe that could happen in relationships. And not to say that it can't, but I've learned that that's less likely than I thought it, would be. And I think that was part of the one thing that I've learned. I think that going into a relationship, really establishing and knowing what you really want from that relationship. And as Doc said, finding that out through friendship first. I think that a lot of people get, just like a job, you don't know what the job's going to be in a year, but you get in the job because it looks good right then, or it has the right salary or whatever. And you figure out as you get through, this ain't what I signed up for. You know what I'm saying? That's not what I really signed up for. And I think a lot of people have done that in there. I mean, my first relationship, I walked into it with the ready-made family. There was already two young kids there. And I didn't want those kids to be hurt again. So I'm going to hang in there and do what I need to do from a father's perspective when it sits in that space. But I think that's what I really learned is that, and learn to really, you have to understand women. I think that's the other part of it too, is that women do speak a completely different language and they have a completely different approach to just about everything. And if men aren't willing to really understand that and invest in it and really, really get to know it, then you find yourself struggling more than you need to struggle in a relationship. Doc, you stupid.
Who's
all
that?
Right. So check this out. So I got this. I want to play this for you all right now. I talked about the men and everything else. I want to run this by y'all real quick.
So recently, a coworker of mine, she asked my opinion on something, and by the end of the conversation, she said I was being negative, I was being mean, and I want you guys to, to answer. I want you guys to tell me if I was being mean or not. But she asked me, why is it hard for her to find a man that makes over 6 figures? And I proceeded to ask her, I said, well, what separates you from your competition? What do you bring to the table? And, she hit me with all the cliches. She hit me with the, I am the table. Or she hit me with the, I don't got no competition, I'm my own competition. And I respect the self-confidence and the high self-esteem. I'll never, ever try to shoot down a person's confidence. But I'm a very analytical person, and I told her, I said, while I respect your confidence, the numbers don't support your argument. The numbers don't support what you're trying to say. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I say, well, let's break this down. I'm assuming you want a black man, correct? She's like, yes. I said, okay, so the U.S. population is 13% black. 22 million black women, 20 million black men. So right there are not enough black men for all the black women in America. Now, you said you want a man that makes over 6 figures. Let's break them numbers down. The number of black adults that make over 6 figures is roughly estimated at about 100,000 black men. There are 13 million of those 22 million black women are black female adults. So there are 13 million black women that probably desire that same man's income type over 6 figures. So if there are 100,000 black men that make over 6 figures, and there are 13 million black women that want this man, that man, for every one of him, there are 130 options. Well, she proceeds to say, well, I mean, she hit me with, I'm beautiful, she hit me with all the, I look good and all this other stuff. I say, okay, cool. Let's say not all 130 of his options look as good as you. 50 of them do. So 50 of them offer him the same amount of beauty, good looks, all that stuff. So how are you going to separate from those 50? And then she was like, well, you just being me, or you just being negative. I'm like, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm saying, if you don't think that you don't have competition for this person that you desire, the numbers don't support that. And you got to start figuring out a way to separate yourself, because there are many people that look just as good as you, if not better, that desire the same person that you want. And she proceeds to get up and walk away. And I don't feel like I was being mean. She asked my opinion. I gave her my opinion. I gave her the numbers. So again, you guys tell me if I was being mean, if I was being negative about her situation.
What y'all think about that?
Yeah.
I think we just on this show. Coach, quit pushing buttons. You're like a little kid.
My bad.
We in okay order? We in okay order?
little kid finger having that.
I'm messing with your ADD. I'm messing with your ADD right now.
I think we've had that discussion multiple times, right? I think that add to that number. Like he's talking about 13% of people over 100,000, not over 100,000. Do you realize? Even I keep adding to that. So men over 6 foot, it's only 13% in the United States. So now let's take 100%. Let's take 13% of men over 106 figures. Now let's take 13% of that of men making $100,000, right? I think there's so many superficial expectations of people wanting a relationship, and I always have the quickest question for most women: why does he have to have 100,000?
Right.
Like,
and I think
why
that's what
number.
I think that's the conversation that we had last week when you did the other clip. That's what that lady on that conversation was talking about. It's like we're looking at two different things. You know what I'm saying? From a man's perspective of what we're looking for in a woman, she's letting you know, women, if this is what you're trying to do, you finna shoot yourself in the foot. Because that's not how we're thinking.
And the pool is small. I mean, the numbers that he used tells you how small that pool is.
Correct.
And so now the ones of us that are in that pool,
right,
got to deal with y'all with an attitude too, and compete with who's got more testosterone. And nah, come on now, And I think my man was being real about it. Ladies, we'll say if you about the clip.
Yep.
Sherry, you still there? Were you able to watch that clip? Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
I think one of the biggest parts for me, and I love when people say that, I know what I bring to the table. That's the craziest statement ever, right? I know what I bring to the table. What do you bring to the table? And I always tell people the same thing. Take off a couple of things, right? So if you know what you bring to the table, you cannot use physical, you cannot use monetary, and you cannot use materialistic. So now, what do you bring to the table, right? So now we have to actually deal with who you are and your character as a person. I think that becomes a problem because most people don't think that deep. Are you argumentative? Do you like to fight? Right? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, that has no value. If we look at the Proverbs 31 woman was a hustler. So do you want to sit on the couch and eat bonbons? Because she was definitely building businesses, storing money away from her family. As she protected him and his name at all costs. So those are things value. So if we're taking away all the things that you believe you bring to the table and that being valuable, then there's a problem. You have to deal with you.
Wilhelmina says, summarize your discussion for me: insecurity and jealousy. Here's the bottom line, Wilhelmina. Insecurity is a belief system that you've adopted, that you've actually bought into, which is not true, but it's true because you made it true. That's number one. Jealousy is your inability to be satisfied with what you have and feel like you have to be equal to or surpassing something outside of you. It all boils down to inadequacy, externally and internally. And both of these are the root cause of people not being able to be transparent, authentic, and vulnerable. That's what it comes down to.
That's good. I like it. I like it.
You need to record that.
You want to do that again, Coach? I bet you can't do it one more time.
I bet you
no, he can't remember what he said. That was too good right there. That just need to be.
Yeah, so you wrote that down. That's on that wall back there. I like it.
Dawn says, I know what I bring to my table, and my hopes are to add to my partners. And I think, Doc, I think that's where I think what you said was this whole, I think this is cliche commentary, because at the end of the day, what you bring to the table, why is that even an issue? I think when you said, well, what do you bring to the table? Well, what do you automatically disqualify? Because I can't bring my character to the table. Because
you have to ask that question. I don't think you're right.
But no one's ever talking about that part of the table.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
That's why I said you have to take off of monetary, money. You have to take off materialistic. And you have to take off physical. So your looks are off the table and sex is completely off the table. You have to take it off the table. Because the reality is this: sex is easy. Sex is too easy, right? I've never had a problem liking sex. And that's not me being cocky. That's me saying that anybody on this call right now, anybody watching later, have an easy time getting sex. You may not want to have sex with people that want to give you the sex, but it's easy to have sex. So if you're thinking that's an attribute of value to someone else, it's not. It's a commodity. right? Everybody can go in their drawer right now and find ketchup packages, soy sauce packages.
I didn't know where you was going when you told me to go to the drawer. I didn't.
But what I'm saying
that's why I learned to wait it out. I just waited it out.
What I'm saying is, I've never met a woman that didn't have a vagina. It's a commodity. It's everywhere. I've never met. I don't look for penis, but I've never met I've never met a man that didn't have a penis. They're everywhere. It's a commodity. So it can't be a value if everybody has it. There has to be some character traits behind you that truly add value. And if we go to the Bible, they're talking about character traits. They're not talking about what you had financially. They're not talking about what you can do physically to a man. They're talking about your character.
Right. And most of what you're going to bring to the table is going to take me time to see anyway.
Correct.
The real things that have value and meaning are going to take time. That's why, again, the process of becoming friends first allows you to see all that and gives you time to evaluate it in a non-threatening situation, in a non-emotional situation. And I think that's a big part of where people miss the whole boat is the emotional attachment, because they feel like love is a feeling. And I think if we can disconnect that and say, no, love is a personal choice. I choose to love you because your behavior says I shouldn't. How you act says I shouldn't, but I choose to love you. And that's why it is. When we deal with a feeling, this is why we can cut folks off without hesitation. Why? Because I don't feel like talking to you. Mm-hmm. You hurt my feelings. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong. Yes, we all have feelings. We all emote. And yes, we feel some type of way when somebody is coming at us in a way that doesn't feel good. But at the end of the day, when it truly comes down to it, I have to be who I need to be, and you're going to have to find that out over time. Dawn says, right, Doc, I was speaking of peace, calmness, laughter, etc. But literally, you have to learn what one has to offer by seeing it for yourself. Yeah, and that takes time, Dawn. That's why when you bring to the table, that's what I'm first showing you right now. You know, what you bring to the table. As Doc said, it's got to be physical, it's got to be monetary. Those are the things I can offer you that don't take any time for you to figure out. But over time, are you loyal? Are you faithful? Do you lie? Mm-hmm. You know,
are you kind?
Mm-hmm. Are you kind? You know, are you forgiving? Are you loving? Do you listen? All that stuff. Because if you told somebody, they said, Doc, tell me about you. Well, I listen. I'm loving. They don't care about whatever. You too deep all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? Right. They don't want to hear that out the gate.
Right. We're starting to place value on the wrong things.
Right.
No doubt.
Right? As soon as you said $100,000, I really can't even listen to you as a woman.
I can't listen to you.
Right, because I know this is shallow. This is a shallow conversation that's about to take place. I think that's where people add the value at now. All the other attributes, we're not adding value to that anymore.
You know, I remember back in the day, there was a show on TV, The Dating Game.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah.
Remember the guy? No, it was the one where the people was behind the curtain and you really couldn't see him.
Right.
And then the guy would say, you know, contestant number one, tell me a little bit about yourself. Mm-hmm. And she would say, well, I'm 5'2". Mm-hmm. I weigh about 110, 120 pounds. I'm brown skinned. I got long hair. Or you give me all your attributes.
Right. Or the girl would say, Ambassador number one, if we went on our first date, where would you take me?
Right.
You know, all of those things when it came down to it, you know, if I was stranded on a desert island, what would you bring me?
What would you bring? Yeah. Again, you didn't hear nobody say, well, I'm kind, I'm loving, you know what I'm saying? I'm loyal. You know what I'm saying?
And it depends on the question, you could articulate it, but you were basing that on a superficial resume that they were trying to get a date with. It's like we talk about the ambassador. The ambassador knows what to say.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The ambassador's never nervous.
Right.
Absolutely.
The ambassador never second guesses. It's the true you that has to do that, because after they really get to spend time with you, now what they're doing is they're literally going through and seeing what you weren't integrous about. What did nigga lie about? He said he was patient. This nigga snapped my neck off the last few times we done talked, right? And this is why it takes time, because you can bring all those other things to the table. You can bring romance, you can bring excitement, you can bring all those things. But again, at the end of the day, that's not what they really need. They need someone who's going to listen. They need someone who's really going to understand where they are. Somebody's going to emote with where they are and really be understanding. So all the romance and things that you're doing, all those are acts of what you're still trying to hide when it comes, when it truly comes down to it.
We got a question, guys. Check this out. It says, I live it's a female. I'm not gonna say her name on there. She says, I live with me and my boyfriend recently moved in together, and his best friend moved in with us. His best friend is extremely messy, doesn't clean the dishes, doesn't clean up the house, and always puts his feet on our couch. I expressed to my boyfriend the dislike that I have for his friend doing that, and I wanted my boyfriend to tell his friend to stop doing that or move out. The boyfriend told me he is not going to tell his friend anything because he does not want to mess up that relationship with his best friend. Signed, what should I do?
I'm baffled here. Like I'm baffled that I need more. I need more information. First of all, why did y'all move? Is he another roommate? Is the guy on the couch half baked? I'm just trying to figure out what the dude is doing here.
Right.
Is he on hard times? Is he on hard times? Did he get put out? Did he get displaced in a hurricane?
It didn't say all that, but I guess we can fill in the blanks. But I was more concerned with he was messy, doesn't clean up the dishes, and always has his feet on my couch. I told my boyfriend to explain to him my dislike, and my boyfriend told me no because he don't want to mess up that relationship.
Well, this is the grim reality.
Come on, talk about it now. Don't.
He's in romance, man.
You say he's in a romance?
He's in
a bromance. He's in a romance with a man, and I don't think he cares about you as much as he cares about his friend. So obviously, it's probably not going to work. You might just need to go ahead and find you someone else. I think when coaches, this guy, I love him to life, right? But I think if me and someone else are in a relationship and we're trying to build a bond, and I say, Coach, I'm in love with her, I don't think he would do anything to try to break the bond between her and I, right? That's what true friendship is, right? I understand you're on hard times. Coach always got a place to stay with me, but there will be a certain level of respect inside of that. So by him allowing his friend to just completely disrespect the household and him not willing to speak up, first of all, probably got a, how do I say this? He probably got a Mitch. He's a Mitch.
No question, Chris, and I take it here too. The fact of the matter that your bro, well, he probably got that t-shirt that bro before hoes. So he really got that in the black closet. He don't want to pull that out. But the other part of it is that you don't trust, you don't respect your dude.
That's what
if I'm gonna let you stay at my house and you move in, you don't respect me. I shouldn't have to tell you that. If I'm staying at Adrian's house, if I'm on my hard time, Adrian say, hey man, you can have this room. Look, the room gonna be clean, the bed gonna be made. I'm gonna do my part in the kitchen. I'm gonna do so, hey bro, anything you need me to do while I'm here, because that's out of respect for where it is. This is just, that's more of the lack of respect that your man has for you. And then he doesn't feel like I can say anything to my girl, because bottom line is he really don't love you, boo. I mean, let's keep it a buck. He don't love you and he doesn't respect you. And if you can ask politely and you have more care for his place than he does, you got to check yourself.
Right.
Why are you there? Well, what's keeping you there? You got to ask yourself that, because to me that's kind of like a no-brainer. No, you can't respect my house. It's time to bounce.
Absolutely.
Dawn says, "Oh no, that was a mistake from the jump. Her boyfriend wasn't ready for a relationship to grow." Wilhelmina said, "Bros, don't mess with that." Dawn said, "You can't grow in a relationship with others that are involved. You need to grow privately." Wilhelmina, you got something going on. It says, "I told my now ex-husband that his friend hit on me. He told
no,
you must have done something."
He said, "No, you must have done something."
He told her she must have done something.
You must have come at him.
Wow. That speaks. That's a whole nother topic right there. That's a whole nother one right there. That's another level. And she says she agrees fully. Yeah, I was just under the impression, man, when I saw that, and she said that she spoke to her husband, talked to the boyfriend. Whose responsibility is it to tell the boyfriend, hey, either get your stuff together or move out? Is it the girlfriend's space to tell him that, or is it the boyfriend's space?
No, it's the man's space. It's his place. It's his place. It's his friend. Right? And that's what I said. It's so many things in that. I was like, how old are y'all? Like, you know, if you've moved into an apartment with another man, his friend, couch surfing, like it's a lot of stuff going on. Why did you do this? How did he get there? Did you agree to this? Because I need to know more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of it. And how long y'all been dating? And what is his understanding of y'all relationship? Because maybe his understanding of relationship is just you in the bed with me, and I'm still gonna live as a bachelor. I mean, maybe that's what it is. Maybe
the relationship is not as strong as you thought it was.
Right. Maybe it's a 1/3 thing. Maybe my bills are tight.
Okay, that's a whole other dimension.
Right. Yeah. So we have to know some more when it came to that. Those circumstances. That's why I said we talked about earlier about narratives. I've said it before. When you hear one side, you take sides. Mm-hmm. And I think we do that in a lot of places. So I think you really got to ask. What are the bigger questions here? Like Doc said, how old are y'all? Is this y'all first relationship? Is this the first time you live with somebody? I mean, all those things are important. Did you all have a discussion before he moved in?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Mm-hmm. Like this is a lot of stuff going on here.
There's a lot of stuff in that one.
Don said it's both of their place, but his friend, he should be the first to say something. If he doesn't, and the friend ignores it, she has the right to dig in that head. Don about that thug life.
Don about that thug life.
Knocking midgets, choking out kittens.
God, thug life all across the torso.
I think the fact that she asked him, I don't know whether she's being respectful or maybe it is his place. She said we just moved in together. So oftentimes that means that she moved in with him. Mm-hmm. Because I don't think he could invite his friend in if he didn't feel some sort of autonomy as that was his place. Wow. If it was y'all's place and he moved his boy in without really talking to you, that really should tell you something.
Yeah, right. But I think that even if it's his place, that's just a level of disrespect. So
completely, it's your boy disrespecting you.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's sharing with you. The boyfriend is sharing with the girl what he actually feels about her.
Right, exactly. No,
it's almost like you telling me I don't want to mess up my friendship.
Right,
but I'm willing to jeopardize the relationship. Go ahead.
Correct. Yeah, no, I'm just saying it's very little respect on both ends.
Very little respect.
I just think it's disrespectful as heck. Regardless, I could never see myself even putting Chris or Coach in a situation where there's a choice between me and their girlfriend, right? Or their wife. I couldn't even, that doesn't even make sense to me.
Because there's going to be some terms. How long I'm going to be here? I'm going to make sure that this room is going to be together. I'm not going to do this or whatever it is. But when you come to me and let me know, I would expect you to be able to come to me and say, hey, man, you're not pulling your weight. My girl feeling some type of way. All right, let me go. Because I ain't trying to come in between what you got going on. I appreciate the fact that you'll let me crash here for the short amount of time, but I'm definitely not going to try to come in between you and your lady. I'll bow out gracefully.
He's a Mitch.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And truth be told, he doesn't have respect for himself because you shouldn't have that as a representation of who you are.
That's what I'm saying. You can't speak up.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
That's good stuff.
All right, we got about a minute left. Any last comments?
Any last comments? Anybody?
Well, this has been an open mic night on Men Unfiltered. We've had a good time as always. Love your commentary. Love to include Wilhelmina says maybe relationships are not that simple. It's painful, and in my opinion, we should call it a breeding ground for personal issues. I never stop growing. Sometimes plants need trimming, etc. Painful, yes. Well, I don't think it's a breeding ground for personal issues. I don't think so. Because I think if a person is committed to who they are and growing, I think if you do all this before the relationship, then you don't have to worry about that. I think what you're talking about is people not going in, Wilhelmina, with the right perspective, them not being in a mature place, them maybe still having trauma that isn't healed, and they're still trying to heal trauma in the next relationship. You do need a relationship to learn how to be in a relationship, but you have to be dealing with your own trauma. I don't think it's a breeding ground for it unless you have been immature and reckless in who you chosen as a partner or to get to know. I think when you put value on who that person is and you have set a standard for what you will and won't accept in your life, then it isn't a breeding ground, because the minute personal issues show up that aren't you, I don't give them time to water. I don't water them. I don't give them time to grow. So it can't be a breeding ground. I don't give them. What about teenagers? In what respect? when you're talking about teenagers?
You know, I think, man, we spend very it's very easy to get married. Like you can go down there today and get a marriage certificate today and be married tomorrow.
Right.
But to get out of a relationship, out of a marriage, takes you time. It's almost like we spend more time trying to get out of the relationship and very little time trying to figure out who you're supposed to be in a relationship at all. Mm-hmm. It should be in reverse. In order to get that marriage certificate and be married, you should be able to go through a process. You should got to go through some classes. You got to do everything that you're trying to do to get out the relationship. You should be doing that up front.
Mm-hmm. No question.
You should be doing that up front. Yeah. We got it completely backwards.
And like I said, I was one of those because I thought that you could do it and change over time, but I don't think I've learned that you can. And again, that was me not knowing any better before. Wilhelmina says, what about teenagers in relationships? And the reality of it is, I think, Wilhelmina, you have to decide what your parenting style is. There are people out here who believe that being their child's friend is a good way to parent. I don't agree with that. I believe that I need to be an authority in your life. And it's funny, I heard a guy talking the other day, and he said, I think people should be told what to do. And he said, wait a minute, hear me out. He said, Tiger Woods was told what to do from the day he was born. And he became the best golfer in the world. He said the Williams sisters were told what to do their entire lives. And look at where it took them. Michael Jackson was told what to do. So I think we live in this world where we don't want anybody to tell us what to do, but I can show you a bunch of examples of people who were given instruction from the Bible. We can talk about Elijah and Elisha. When Elisha dropped everything to follow Elijah. And he asked him, he said, if I be lifted up, if I be here when you be lifted up, will you grant me a double portion of your anointing? He dropped everything to follow him. And look at what it did. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think we have to have, I was talking about self-knowledge. Well, I tell you what, we'll take that up next time. Send that to Chris and go deeper in that. We're talking about self-knowledge and relationships. We do unequivocally believe that people need to be accountable, know themselves, learn themselves, Absolutely. And be responsible. So let's talk about that. We can talk about all that self-knowledge and what they need to know and some of the things that they're not being told or some of the things they're not practicing in their lives. And maybe that'll help. So we'll do that next time. Just send that to Chris and we'll wrap it up in the show. Dawn says, yes, they are successful, but everyone carries hurt, pain, etc. behind closed doors. No question.
Absolutely. No question.
And again, that's what has to be healed, Dawn, before you can go into or should go into that next relationship. But we're over the time now. Chris in Atlanta. Chris, travel safe to Chile.
I'm in Miami. Miami.
Yeah, what did I just say?
Atlanta.
Oh, I'm sorry, in Miami. I don't know why I said Atlanta. In Miami.
All good.
In Chile. So have a good time. Doc, I'm so excited about what you're doing. And I can't wait to help you serve next Tuesday. It's going to be fun. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I am 56. So if you're in Jacksonville and you want to come celebrate with us, we will be over at Wildcrafters over in Riverside. Come on by, say hi, happy birthday from 6 to 9, and have a good time. We'll do that. But as always, we appreciate you. We appreciate your commentary and your involvement in Men Unfiltered. I'm the real GM, the health evangelist, Grayson Marshall Jr., and my two partners in Podcast Pros, as always. Let's go top left.
On the grind, Coach Chris Allen. Man, every time it's always good to be on this podcast with you gentlemen. Just pouring into each other, figuring out how we think, sharpening these tools, and it's always good. So go check me out on thegrindgear.com, and happy birthday, Coach.
Thank you, buddy. Last but not least, the incomparable, the unprecedented, the
male stripper,
the reform thought.
Oh, the reform thought.
I just want some more adjectives, man. Dr. Adrian, never forget the Gentry. Mr. 100. Mr. used to make them clap.
Used to
make them clap.
Reform thought.
Reform, aka BKA, reform thought.
Hey, why y'all playing? We should get some shirts. Y'all should get some shirts like that. Reform thoughts.
We should do that. You know, we should probably get a shirt next. Starting 2023, we should get a shirt for every show and just have a theme right here on our chest, whatever it comes down. We have 52 different shows on there. 50 different shows. But thank you, Don. Appreciate you. So we'll see you guys next Monday. I'll be here Wednesday, and Doc and I'll be with Straight Talk on Friday. So we'll see you guys soon. Everybody be safe. Stay warm in the 904 because it's starting to get chilly. And we'll see you next Monday. Peace.